Hi friends, welcome back. This is Betty's Glam Boutique and I am Betty. Today I have a different type of video that I am going to present. Okay, now here on Betty's Glam Boutique, you can get a variety of conversations, a variety of topics and videos because this is all things Betty. And all things Betty is just simply topics that interest me, whether it be in the news, the media. It can be a fragrance comparison video that I am doing. I love doing those. It could be some arts and crafts that I myself have created, handmade here at home. Or it could also be anything that's, athletic, working out, just whatever it is I want to talk about and or discuss. Now, today, this particular video is going to be very different. And it is also my first type of video of this manner, and it is a crime video. It is about an active, open case where 4 students lives were taken. I'm trying to be very careful in the way I word it and the word usage that I have. Because I do want to be very, very sensitive to the families, very sensitive to the friends of the students, as well as honoring their names and their memory at this particular stage of the case and in this type of capacity. So if you are interested in that type of topic, first, bear with me, and then secondly, stay around. And it's an interesting case, to say the least. And I do want to give my point, my perspective on it, as well as some questions that I have about it that hopefully some of my viewers will be able to help point to me in the right or proper direction with some of the questions and concerns that I do have. So stay around. So now, if you follow any of my previous videos, you know that I am a note taker. And I always have notes, handwritten notes and or information that I have pulled that I want to use. So we're going to get started and we're going to get straight into it. Now, this is a case, as I've stated, of 4 college university students whose lives were taken last year. Okay. Now, the date of this particular incident was last year in November, which is also one of the reasons why I want to do this video, because we are quickly approaching November again, and it will be the 1-year mark of the crime or the deaths of these particular students. Now, this is an incident that occurred on November 13th, 2022. The victims of whom names you will hear me mention in this video many times, because I'm going to want to talk about each student individually, and then I will also have moments where I talk about them in pairs for various different points. Okay, so this occurred in Moscow, Idaho, last year, November 13th, 2022. In the middle of the night, at some point, these students who live in an off-campus apartment, or I guess you can say an off-campus housing. They have their own house off-campus, and they all live together as roommates. Okay. Okay, so in this particular case, you have 21-year-old Madison Mogan, who I will reference and is popularly known as Maddie. Okay. You have 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves. You have 20-year-old Xana Cornodal. And then you also have 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. Okay. Now, Madison, which is Maddie, and Kaylee are best friends, and they've been best friends, to my understanding, since they were in grade school. So somewhere late elementary or early middle school range, they've been good friends, best friends, almost like sisters to each other. Both of them were at home and in the house at the time, and they did fall to be victims of this particular crime. Then you also have Xana Cornado and Xana's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, who was visiting the house that particular night. He and Xana both are also victims of this particular crime. So the four students that I mentioned, so we have Maddie, we have Kaylee, we have Xana, and we have Ethan. Those are the four students. And I will make certain that I have images of them as well here posted as I am presenting information about each one of them. Out what was going on, but weeks had gone by and I was getting nervous. I was getting scared. I thought and felt that they were never going to find a suspect. Now, what was happening in that time frame, I remember they were clearing people. They were clearing people left and right. Now, I'm going to share some of the people who have been cleared and some of the people who the public was kind of suspicious about, right? So we're going to do that right now. Kaylee had recently broke up with her boyfriend. Now, the night of the crime, Kaylee and Maddie, from my understanding, had both put in phone calls calling the boyfriend multiple times. It was kind of like back-to-back calling that girls sometimes do. You know, I call, he doesn't answer, hang up, call, he doesn't answer, hang up the phone, call, he doesn't answer, leave a voicemail, hang up, leave a text message, hang up, call again, why isn't he answering me? You know, you kind of just, you know, you're trying to get in contact with him, okay? And I don't know what happened leading up to that, but for whatever reason, she's trying to call. But to no avail. Also, her friend Maddie, which is best friends as I've informed you, she's also calling the ex-boyfriend. So between Kaylee and Maddie and Kaylee, they're calling him multiple times. Something to the tune of 8, 9, or 10 times this would occur that same night leading up to the incident that I'm referring to. So he definitely was a red flag, and he was on a lot of people's radar. So one, you have Kaylee's boyfriend or recently ex-boyfriend that she's calling multiple times. One suspect or one person of interest or suspicious to the public at large. Now, there was another person who a lot of people in the public was suspicious of, and this would be a neighbor. Now, this neighbor lived nearby. The way the parking lot or the drive space of the house is set up, I'm not sure if he lived next door, or it looked like there's several houses on the same property or on the same land, or I'll try to show some images of what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's a neighbor who knew the students that lived there, not really well, but by way of speaking here or there, being neighborly. I think he had brought over some wine or something at one point. He's a cook or a chef or does some type of chef type work, or I don't know if it's a hobby or a profession, but either way, there's a neighbor. And so some people was concerned about this neighbor. Later, there's another person who was suspicious to me and still is suspicious to me even now. But it was a guy that was with them at a grub with Kaylee and Maddie at a grub truck earlier on that same, everything is the same night that I'm speaking about, that same night. And there are some people that have some thoughts of him possibly having some knowledge or something to do with the crime. Okay, so the ex-boyfriend of Kaylee, I have my notes, is Jack Decour. Okay. Then we have another Jack, which would be the guy that was with Kaylee and Maddie at the grub truck. And that's going to come up again in one of my videos. And I'm using the word with the girls very loosely because I want to hone in on that a little bit more eventually. But these are just some names I want to share so everybody can be kind of caught up to speed on my thinking of all of this. Okay, Enan Harsh would be the neighbor that I was just referencing and speaking about. So, and then there's, I remember at some point, it was shared in the media that there were two roommates who had survived this ordeal, or I guess two surviving roommates who also lived in the home and were present during the incident. Okay, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I know that they said it was two females, and I didn't know the names of the girls at the time, other than it was two surviving roommates who lived in the home and was also present during the time of this incident. And so I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I know these girls must be in the hospital. They must be in critical condition. They must be, met with the same fate as the other four, but for whatever reason had survived it. You know what I'm saying? Like they had been injured, hurt, and harmed, and injured with the weapon as well, but survived it. Some people survive attacks. So I'm thinking they survived the attack. They're somewhere in the hospital, hospitalized, in critical condition, probably fighting for their lives as well. But so as more information continued to unfold, I was wrong in my thoughts of thinking that they had been hurt or harmed. It came out that the two surviving roommates was uninjured, unharmed, unscathed physically. Okay, I don't want to say that they were uninjured because I'm pretty sure this was emotional, mental, frightened. I mean, just imagine being in a dwelling where four people are unalived by knife point, and you're alive. I'm thinking, so were they hiding? Were they in the closet, under the bed, quiet somewhere, and just the person who did this was not aware that they were present? It's my next thinking on it, right? And again, like I said, just bear with me as I am sharing the information as it was unfolding. So you can kind of see where my current state of mind is with the questions that I have, because there's questions that I have about all of that. Now, eventually, on December 30th, maybe, because it was after Christmas, but before the New Year. So in that window of time, a suspect was named, and it was 28-year-old Brian Koberger. Okay. Now, I remember, I remember seeing his face and pictures of him, videos of him plastered again all over the news. So this case is kind of reemerging again because now they have a suspect. The police department have a suspect in their possession, 28-year-old PhD student at the time, Brian Koberger. Now, they picked Brian up from his parents' home or his family home in Pennsylvania. Now, I just told you that the crime took place in Idaho, which of course is on the west coast of the United States. And then you have Pennsylvania, which is on the east coast of the United States, which is where they actually picked up Brian Koberger, saying that he is the person responsible for these crimes. Okay. So the information that I want to share now about my questions, concerns, are things that are written here on my notes, things that I feel are weird, unusual, and just questionable at best. Okay. And this is where Brian Koberger being the suspect would be concerned, as well as some other dynamics that would play out in the news media that's questionable and question worthy, I would say. Okay. Now, the police have narrowed down the time to somewhere between 3 o'clock a.m. and 4 o'clock a.m., but a phone call does not go into the 911 police department until 11:58 a.m. So we may as well just go ahead and say 12 o'clock. So from 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 noon. It was 8 hours later that 911 was called to come to that resident. Now let that sink in for a moment. Now, the surviving roommates would be Dylan, which Dylan does give some information. Dylan Mortensen. She does give some information of her account of things in the probable cause affidavit. And then there's also another roommate by the name of Bethany Funk. So for the future reference of this video, this page, it would be Dylan and Bethany, the two surviving roommates. Girl, like 8 hours? So my 4 roommates, or 3 roommates and a boyfriend of one of the roommates, we're in the same house, in the same close proximity. They've been unalived with a sharp, we're gonna get to the weapon in a second, but it was a knife, in the wee hours of the morning, and no one called for 911 for 8 hours. That's my number one area of concern right there. And I know people say that the surviving roommates are getting a hard time. They've been harassed on the internet. People are coming out of the woodwork. Some have even claimed them to have been involved in the crime. I am not in a position to put them to the left or to the right of this thing, right? But I am concerned about an 8-hour time difference in a crime that occurred under the same roof where you was physically present, and no one called for law enforcement or the police for 8 hours. Okay, so you have the first floor, which is where they say Bethany was located. Her bedroom is on the first floor of the dwelling, on one side of the house. On the second floor, you have now victim of the crime, Xana, and her boyfriend, Ethan. And then you have Dylan, who is still one of the surviving roommates. And then on the third floor was where you would find Kaylee and Maddie. Now, this particular night, I told you that Kaylee and Maddie was on a mission, okay? They was on a mission, getting in contact with Jack Decor, which is Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. So Kaylee was actually in the bedroom with Madison, And they were found together in the bed together when the police arrived. And of course, we know that they are two of the victims of this crime. Now, in the media, they kept saying that the roommates were in their bedrooms and they were sleeping, but that is not the case. We later found out. Dylan, who is on the second floor of the dwelling as these things are occurring, is awake. Not only is Dylan awake, Dylan is wide awake, okay? Not only is Dylan wide awake and annoyed and frustrated with all of the noise that she is hearing about the premises, okay? She never said she was annoyed or frustrated. That's me saying she was annoyed and frustrated, because Dylan gets out of her bed and goes to her door, opens the door and looks out of her door 3 different times during this occasion. And this is according to the probable cause affidavit. One time, Dylan goes to her door and she says that she can hear Kaylee make a statement that there's somebody here, someone is here, or something to that effect. But Dylan thinks that Kaylee is upstairs on the 3rd floor playing with her dog Murphy, or they're up there doing whatever they're doing, right? So she feels like there's nothing going on with that, so she closes the door and goes back to her bed, I guess. Then a little while later, the noise keeps going because your roommates are being unalived. So I would imagine there's a lot of noise happening. Anyway, she comes back to her door a second time, and this time I think she said that she yelled something out like, what's all this noise, or shut the F up, or something to that notion. So the second time she comes to her door, she yells out, because now she can hear some noise on the 2nd floor, which is the floor where we now know that Xana and Ethan would be at, because that's the same floor where that's the same level where Dylan's bedroom is at. So she yells out something down the hallway. Then the 3rd time she comes to the door dealing with this, she sees the guy. She sees the suspect in the house. Okay, so it is said that she sees the guy in the house. And here's another area of concern that I have. Because in the probable cause affidavit, the way they word it, so Dylan is saying, I saw someone wearing black. She gives a description of the person, his height. I think she said, or the probable cause affidavit puts the person to be at about 6 feet tall or something to that notion. Dylan herself is a fairly tall female. So she puts the person to be taller than she is. He's not muscular, but he is athletic build. His face was covered with a face mask, so his nose and mouth was covered with a mask, but she can see his eyes and she can see that he had bushy eyebrows, okay? But what my attention wants to go to the fact that in the probable cause affidavit, it said that the person whom she describes to be a man, a gentleman, a guy, a male, was clad in black. My focus is not the fact that he's wearing black. It is not the fact that he is covered. It is not that he has on a mask. I honed in on the word clad. Clad. Now, did Dylan tell the police officers that he was clad in black? Or did the police officers themselves use the word clad to describe the person dressed in all black? Where did clad come from? Okay. Now you may be sitting here thinking, Betty, why does that bother you? Why is that a concern for you? Well, I'll tell you why. Now, at some point during this conversation between Dylan and the police officers, Dylan, I guess, in her attempt to give some type of explanation about the 8-hour window or gap between the incident occurring and 911 being called was because, and I quote from the probable cause affidavit, Dylan says that she was in a frozen shock phase. Dylan was frozen in shock. Now, yeah, you know, you can be in shock. You're frozen. You're scared. You don't want to move. You don't want to get out of your spot. Is he still here? Am I going to be next? I don't want him to see me. All of those things I would imagine to be going through your mind. But 8 hours worth? Girl, I mean, like, in 8 hours, that's a whole work shift. Like, you can drive across 5, 6, 7, 8 states in 8 hours. You could be, I mean, you're almost out of the country if you committed these crimes 8 hours ago and the police wasn't called out. Okay? Whomever you may be. Whether we're to believe it was Brian Koberger who did these things or someone else who might be responsible for this. Either way, 8 hours ago was a long time ago. But I don't want to get back on the 8 hours. I want to get back to the clad. Okay? So the clad in black is where we are right now. I'm suspicious of the word clad because no one speaks like that. So I have 4 of my close friends or 4 of my roommates, because we can't assume they're close friends. We know that they're roommates. We can't assume that they're close friends because they could possibly hate each other. But for right now, at best, these are my roommates. 3 of my roommates and a friend of one of them, the boyfriend of one of them has now, they're unalive, okay? And I've been in a frozen shock phase for the last 8 hours. That's a very impressive word to pull out of the sky when you're given a description of someone. Clad in black. What happened to, he was wearing black, he had on black, I saw him with a black outfit on, clad in black? Where did you get that word from, Dylan? Clad. He was clad in black. That's an unusual word to me. Clad in black. So if you are watching this video and you have a 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old in close proximity to you, whether it be your child, your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, your neighbor, your church member, ask them to use the word clad in a sentence. Okay? I mean, I'm serious. Is that a word people use on a daily basis? I can see Dylan telling the police officer that he was wearing black or he had black on, and maybe the police officer used the word clad in black when he was typing up, you know, the probable cause affidavit. He was, you know, submitting this report to his upper management, to his supervisor, to the lieutenant, to the whoever. That's just not a descriptive word a person would hear on a frequent basis. Clad in black. He was wearing black. He had black clothes on. I saw him with a black outfit. Yeah, all of that. But he was clad in black. And I'm just waking up from a frozen shock phase, me, myself. So that's an impressive word to be using on any day of the week, much less right now. Clad in black. He was clad in black. Okay. Let's get off of that because there's other more important and impressive, pressing things to be said and shared. Okay, so now that we have the clad situation taken care of, it is said that the suspect entered into the home and unalived these babies with a K-bar knife, okay? I had to Google K-bar knife because I'm not familiar with knives at all, and much less a K-bar, whatever that is. So I had to Google it, and I also pulled up one on Amazon to kind of see what that is and what that looks like. Now, here's where the information gets a little tricky, okay? It is said that how they came to find the suspect, because remind you, the police didn't have anything. There was a knife sheath of the K-bar knife that was found in the bed where Kaylee and Maddie, which is on the third floor, we're back up to the third floor now, okay? Where Kaylee and Maddie were, there's a K-bar knife sheath, not the knife, okay? The sheath of the knife. Now, I had to Google that because knife sheath was something that I did not know. I don't know what a knife sheath is. So I had to Google it, right? So basically a knife sheath is the casing that the knife goes into. So you have your knife and you have a sheath and you put the knife inside the sheath. So this is your holster, is how I'm putting it for my own intelligence, okay? This is the knife, the holster. So a holster is to a firearm as a sheath is to a knife, okay? They're saying that the suspect left this knife sheath in the bed where Maddie and Kaylee were, and that there is some touch DNA on a button. So the button of the knife sheath that you would, I guess, fasten the knife into the sheath, there's some touch DNA on that button, okay? When forensics ran the DNA of the knife sheath, is how they come to Bryan Kohberger. Now, there are some steps in between there. It's not so simple as that. They had to go through some ancestry and some genealogy and lurk around in the trash can at Bryan Kohberger's family's house over in the West Coast, in the East Coast. East Coast, okay? The East Coast in Pennsylvania, to get some of his dad's DNA to run a sample. But I don't want to get into that right now. That's an entire video by itself. But what you need to know is that there's a knife sheath with Bryan Kohberger's touch DNA on it, okay? Just sitting right there, and there's no other DNA in the house of Bryan Kohberger. Not on the door, not on any of the windows, not in the room where Xana and Ethan are on the second floor, not in the room where Madison and Kaylee are on the third floor. There's no other DNA of Bryan Kohberger. Not on the dog Murphy, no sweat, no tears, no red substance. I'm not sure if I can say the word that starts with a B on here, but none of that. No hair, no other DNA of Bryan Kohberger is in the home other than on the knife sheath. Now, this knife sheath is just sitting there like a cherry on the top. And I feel like leaving a knife sheath somewhere, I'm not going to say it's impossible to leave a knife sheath behind. I just don't see it being so likely, okay? And that's going to run us into talking about Bryan Kohberger a little bit more and my mindset about what was happening where he's concerned. So give me a moment. Bryan Kohberger, what I did not share about him earlier, is that he's a criminology student. So I think he has his master's degree in criminology, and he's working on his PhD as we speak, or as these things was going on, right? He's not working on anything right now because he's incarcerated. He's incarcerated waiting on his trial that keeps being pushed back and the dates keep changing, but that's another video. There's so much going on here. But anyway, Bryan Kohberger, not only is he a criminology student, he's one of those like smart alecky students who kind of knows it all and is willing to debate and go back and forth with the other students, even the professor, I would imagine at times. And I got that from one of the documentaries that I was watching, where he had some former students who was reporting on what had now happened with this case. So when I saw that there was a knife sheath that was left at the scene on the bed with two of the victims, and there was no other DNA other than that. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing, Brian Kohlberger. You are a how to get away with murder type prick, is what you're doing. You're trying to leave some breadcrumbs for the police officers, just enough for them to find you, but not find who you are, but not enough for you to be convicted of this particular crime. That's what you're doing, Brian Kohlberger. So that's kind of how I was receiving the information, and that was what I did and how I processed the knife sheath. Okay. I'm not saying Brian Kohlberger did this. I'm not saying he did not do it. I'm just saying that the evidence so far, I wouldn't be able to convict him of it, is what I'm saying. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go on and go further into some other videos that I'm going to present. But for right now, just know that I still have questions about the roommates. I still have questions about Brian Kohlberger's innocence or guilt. I still have questions about the clad in black. I have questions about the footprint that was found at the home of the crime. I have questions about the knife sheath as well. And I'm going to get into those things a little bit more, but I want to hear from you all first. Other people that are following the Idaho 4 crime, other people that is aware of the case that I am referring to, or if this is your first time hearing about it or knowing about it, I want to hear some things that if I said anything that would alert you to have questions as well. So I'm going to go ahead and end my video here, knowing that I will come back and do other videos soon, because like I said, I want to get an opportunity to single out some of these concerns that I have. One of which is the time frame that it took to call 911 and the actual incident occurring, the 8-hour window. I want to talk about more about the PCA, the probable cause affidavit. I want to talk more about the other roommates that are surviving. I want to talk more about the grub truck and the gentleman that appeared to have been accompanying Maddie and Kaylee at the grub truck the night of the incident. I want to talk more about a lot more things. So there's other discussions that I want to have. But until then, I want to say thank you all for joining me today on this. This is a new journey for me. But I want to say thank you for joining me. I want to say please like the video if you found the information to be interesting, as well as leave comments so that you can kind of help further direct me on some of the information that I may not have correct myself. But until next time, I want to say thank you all so much for joining me, and stay tuned for other similar videos. Have a great day. Thank you.